Welcome to today's webinar, 7 Ways to Maximize Your Trade Show Booth ROI. My name is Val Riley. I am the head of content marketing here at Insightly. I'm excited to get in the groove of live events. I got interested in this topic about a month and a half ago when our team decided we were going to attend some events in September. And I thought, oh gosh, I bet everyone's a little bit rusty on our team. And we have so many new hires who have never actually worked a live event before. And so I thought, well, we're experiencing this, perhaps others out there are as well. So I reached out to my network and got in touch with Lee, and we decided to do this webinar together. And Lee is certainly qualified. Welcome, Lee. He's a 20-year veteran of events with stints at Ziff Davis, Tech Target, On24, and TouchCast. Lee is known for helping people providing best practices to get the most out of their trade show experiences. He speaks regularly at industry events, and he is also part of the LinkedIn Sales Leadership Forum. Welcome, Lee.
Thank you, Val. Excited to be here and excited to talk about this topic that means a lot to me.
Yeah, so we ran the poll just before we got started, and we're looking at the responses now. So tell me what you think.
Well, this is, wow, it's actually more than I thought, as far as people who have attended an in-person industry event already in 2022 at 72% yes and 28 no. What we're hearing out there a little bit is more in the 60-40 area. So we have a high-performing group here, which may make sense because of the topic. As far as planning to sponsor and be there, it's solid. It's exciting to see 90% ready to get back in there and add that into their demand generation and marketing programs. Getting a sense of how people think of their current ROI. This is good to know that we're looking, people believe they could do better in improving their ROI. You're at the right place. Congratulations. And how do you describe your pre-event? Could be better also, needs a lot of work. We're happy to give you a lot of insights today around that. And your post-event also, I think consistent, could be better and needs a lot of work. That is, it shows you're with people who you're in the same boat, shall we say. You're in the same boat. So that's really helpful as we begin our session to know where you are. So thanks very much. When we started promoting this webinar on LinkedIn as one of the areas, but I tagged a few previous teammates that I'd spent a ton of time with at on-site events. And one of them, Katie O'Rourke, who you see at the bottom, who I worked with at On24, she replied with the quote, "How could I forget Sergeant Lee? Walk with purpose." And, this comes with a bit of a backstory, but I think it does set the stage for today's topic, 7 ways to maximize your booth ROI. See, it used to drive me crazy that the marketing department would spend tens of thousands and oftentimes hundreds of thousands on an event. And we would send people to this event who thought of it as a boondoggle, a party, as if this was a President's Club trip. And, especially if it was in Las Vegas. So the teams referred to me as a drill sergeant because I had a clear expectation. If you're representing the company on site, you show up on time, you ideally early, you're at all assigned activities, not just the booth, could be at, ancillary events, you're dressed professionally, and you're certainly not hungover. The company has spent a fortune on this event and your T&E to be here. This seems like a fair expectation. So you want to make sure everyone representing the company, regardless of the department or seniority, knows the clear expectations of their role prior to the event, on-site, post-event, in advance, and don't be afraid to be a drill sergeant to ensure the company maximizes their ROI.
Leah, I'm so delighted to hear that because as someone who's been in charge of the marketing budget, I've often been called the killer of fun because people do think they're going to come and they're going to have fun and they're going to go out and listen, they can enjoy themselves. We want them to, but this is an event where there are heavy expectations. And I think folks just need to be constantly reminded of that.
Exactly. So number one, you want to develop a pre-event target list based on speakers, sponsors, and those with booths. So often you're not going to receive the attendee list prior to the event, but you are able to see who the speakers are, the sponsors, and those with booths. So you want to pre-schedule meetings on site, and that is one of the first ways you can increase your ROI, say, versus taking the chance of a happenstance meeting. So way to look at it. For weeks before the event, review the speakers, other participating companies, for those in your ICP, your ideal customer profile, and or your target lists. If you see matches and you know who the speakers are, but you only know the company and the names of the sponsors and those with booths. So then you want to build out a prospect list with companies you want to meet with from your CRM, from your LinkedIn, Zoom Info, or whatever your sources are. But this should be a joint effort between marketing, sales, and when I say sales, if you have it, both SDRs and AEs. They know who are their target customers, AEs. They see they're going to be there. They know the people who they would want to talk to that may be there, and you're compiling this list.
I just want to share, Lee, that I mentioned this before, but one of the biggest deals I have ever closed at a trade show was selling to the people in the booth next door to us. And it was well over a 6-figure deal. And so I think sometimes we're so hyper-focused on the attendees, who's going to be there, when the fellow sponsors, that list is right in front of our face, and we can certainly make a lot of progress there. So just a tidbit from me.
100%. And there are some nuances that are there, Val.
Mm-hmm.
You typically there's a lot of downtime. You'll see high traffic times at the event. They'll have a networking hour, they'll have a break in between. That isn't the time to pitch other people, the people next to you. It's in the downtimes in between that people are there. That's a natural time to strike up conversations and to work. I'll talk a little bit about that later, but great point.
Great. All right, on to number two.
Number two, so the pre-event campaign to secure booth demos, meetings, invites to co-sponsored cocktail or dinner event on an on-site nearby. A lot of words, let's break down that out. So you've now that you've have your desired on-site prospect list, a few weeks prior to the event, it's time to schedule your outbound email campaign. So in addition to pre-scheduled meetings at the booth, your sponsorship may also, if you've sponsored it, have a vendor session presentation that also should be promoted in that campaign, especially if it includes a customer case study with a customer presenting. And I can't recommend more. That is really one of the most effective ways to get people to come, especially if it's a vendor session, to have a customer pay for their T&E, have them come, have them present. It adds a lot of credibility, and you'll attract many more people to your session. And it also adds some weight in your campaign when you send that out. Now more than ever at events, they're cutting back budgets. And you'll notice that what they're doing is they may have a cocktail party in the exhibition hall, but they've cut back on all the dinners that they do. And so this is a great opportunity to find some other sponsors or booth participants that are in your ecosystem and co-host a dinner, ideally at the same hotel or very close by. You don't want to create a logistical barrier. And it is a great way to attract senior level attendees. So for example, Val, say you notice at this event, you have a booth, but RingCentral does too, Shopify does, Xero does. These are all integration partners of Insightly and not particularly competitors. So that would be an ideal group of people to package together, team up together, and create one of the must-attend dinners or a tequila tasting or whatever you think would attract your desired audience.
Yeah, and another tip too, sometimes The evenings tend to get a little crazy, you know, if there's a concert or there's a after hours event. Sometimes you can hijack a little time at breakfast and get people up and out of their hotels a little bit early, and then maybe do something as a breakfast too.
100%. So now you have your content for your outbound email campaigns, one with a dinner event focused on or senior level prospects, one for secondary prospects focused on a speaking session, and and one for meeting up specifically at the event. So all these prospects should be assigned to SDRs, and they should be compensated for the meeting set and held in the same manner that they are compensating for a meeting set and held for a Zoom meeting at a non-event. That really helps drive motivation and secures that pre-event meetings and gets you to have enough. AEs attending the event should also have goals. It's an honor to represent the company there, to be there. They should have clear goals for scheduling meetings ahead of time, working with this SDR, self-prospecting, especially if there's a nice dinner and they're inviting a senior level person. That's the perfect way to reach out and bring that person there. They're the ones who's going to be there networking with that person for the dinner. We used to also say, if you don't have anyone at the dinner, you're not coming to the dinner. Like that, if you want to be part of that, you have to drive attendance and be part, and get there and do that. Finally, many events, will provide the attendees. You'll get that if you have the event app, you'll get all the attendees about 48 hours in advance. That is golden time. Scanning through the attendees, sorting by your ICPs. Katie, who I mentioned earlier, was just a master at this, and she could secure meetings in the last 48 hours once she saw exactly who was going to be there from enterprise company XYZ, who she's been going after, and use either the messaging app from the app itself or emails directly to schedule and set up that meeting. So, and then the last thing, have a calendar with all the scheduled meetings at the booth so you can ensure you have the right resources on hand, especially if a meeting is scheduled during a high traffic hour. An AE is going to be doing that meeting. Well, they're not going to be available then for the general traffic that's coming by. You have to make sure you have enough resources there to cover those calls.
Right. Super important.
Does that make
sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we are moving on. All right, we're at the event. Here we go.
Now at the event, that's pre-event. We're now during the event. What we want to talk about is engaging interactive booth that generates energy and attention. And let's talk about how we might do that. So you're coming into the booth, ideally with 50 to 60% of your meetings pre-scheduled. Now it's time to ensure you get your share of the floor traffic. So an 8-foot table with brochures and logo squishies isn't going to cut it. You want to stand out. You want to generate energy. You want to draw attention. So a large spin and win wheel with a variety of prizes that make some noise, includes some big value ones that will draw people in to stand in line. And when they're in line for that's a perfect opportunity to scan badges and have conversations. You could get even crazier and have a cash grabbing wind tunnel with scheduled times, and you must be scanned to even participate. Those spectacles, they garner a lot of social media posts from people posting and grabbing of others in there. And then that draws a dish. If you put those in hashtag the event, others see it and they make sure they come by your booth. Other things, a photographer on hand to take updated LinkedIn social media, not Tinder, but social media profile shots. That won't work well at an event, but that leads to great conversations. Again, while they're standing in line to get that, they also give you their best email address because they really want that photograph, updated photograph for those things. Some other ideas that draw attention, a sign of a more cerebral booth draw. Say, look for high profile speakers who are at the event. Those people, 90% of the time, have books. They are always looking to show that their books are at the top of a bestseller or Amazon list. You can make that person a deal that you'll buy a bulk number of their books if they will come by the booth and sign those books for you. And then you can put a sign up. Usually you want to do it after their speaking session. Then there's usually a break that is a networking session. They announce at their session, I'll be signing books. The good folks at Insightly are giving away this, and you can come down and you'll have a line of people there to do it. Now, one thing you could do extra with that person is have them sign an additional 20 books and personalize them to some of your top prospects in your pipeline that may not be at the event. Then your AEs or a senior executive can send that book to the person and said, sorry, we missed you at this event. We hosted so-and-so out in our booth, and they personalized this book for you. We look forward to working with you. It's just an additional way to leverage that, that activity to influence your other pipeline and activities along that line.
I love that idea. Lee, we did get a question to clarify. You used SBR and AE acronyms. Can you spell those out for our folks who may not be familiar?
I apologize. I apologize on that. I hate when and look, I did it. SDRs are sales development representatives, sometimes called business development representatives. Technically, this is a person who's there whose sole focus is to book appointments for your AEs. And so AEs are account executives. They would typically be your sales reps. So when I divide the two, if you do have an organization that has appointment setting representatives versus sales representatives, what I was trying to get across or reinforce is they both should be engaged in scheduling these meetings pre-event and as such.
Appreciate that clarification. Yeah, and during the event, sometimes I like to call what you're describing as the human funnel, right? Maybe if you have a game or an activity or something that's attention grabbing, the marketing folks that are there are working the game or talking to folks. And then as those people start to ask questions that get maybe a little bit more detailed, you pass them on to the AE or the SDR, who can, get into more one-on-one conversations with them. So like they're going deeper in the funnel, literally in your booth.
I do think it's important to consider being COVID aware while you're working the booth, and you have to read the room. Like give a little more distance than you normally might, especially if the person's wearing a mask. Avoid physical contact that you may have or done in the past. And if you have something like a spin and win where the person is actually spinning, you should have antiseptic wipes available in doing that. And if you're scheduling a dinner or an external activity, if you have an option to do so, an outdoor venue just makes, it increases the chance of you having as many people as possible there and not being known as the super spreader event. So whatever, these are things to consider in these times as you're doing that. So now, similar to what you were talking about, Val, and I think that's really important, is to have a mix of personas at the booth and sponsored sessions. Because you typically, as we talked about, when you sponsor an event, there are going to be 1 to 2 high traffic sessions per day. And you'll also have, like, say, that vendor speaker session. So you'll want to have all hands on deck during those times. And if you have people who are interested and walking by because everyone is engaged at that moment, you've missed out. So that means when you talk about various personas, we're talking event managers, marketing managers, AEs, sales engineers, product marketers, and senior executives, mostly for pre-scheduled meetings that are very important. We're not asking those senior executives to spin the wheel, if you know what I mean, Val, but to be there for some really solid meetings. Now, this allows the right people to drive the right conversation. So for example, if you have a person who walks up, and I'm sure this has happened all the time too, Val, who's a current customer, and they have a really in the weeds question about something they're doing, when we try and do this, we can't do this. it is perfect to kind of spin them to a solutions consultant or sales engineer or product marketer who can help take care of their question, which then frees up an AE for a new pipeline conversation, new customer conversation. However, I don't just having customers in and around the booth are great, because if they're big fans, there's no better seller than a happy customer. So being able to have that person, if someone comes up and asks a question, oftentimes will be like, oh, look, so-and-so from here, they have the same challenge, then it was resolved. Please join in and have a conversation with them.
I do love having a solutions engineer at the booth, exactly what you said, because sometimes when current customers come up, they genuinely want to engage with you, but, we want to engage with them too, but we also, really want to conquer some new business there. So being able to pass them to the person who can best help them, and the person, and simultaneously freeing up an AE or an SDR to have a conversation, a new business conversation is certainly a win.
Yeah. And it's great. Sometimes they're talking to a product marketer, and if that's a challenge that person's heard a few times, then it gets on the roadmap. And then the person has a lot of pride that they've influenced the roadmap, and they aren't the only ones with something.
And they'll always take some swag too, right? So like that's
of course, and we want them to. We've also had a lot of success with these SDRs, who I described before, the sales development reps, as business as appointment centers, actually including them in the mix on site, because with a pre-event campaign list in hand, they can walk the booths at off traffic times, as I mentioned before, and ask, is X, Y, or Z here today? It's amazing what they find out. They'll find out, yes, they are, and they can secure a meeting later at the booth or for a demo. They also can find out, if they're not around, who is around. Oftentimes they might be told, you know what, that person isn't the right person, but the person who's here is this person, and they're able to either get an appointment with that person, or they learn who to follow up with after the event. So a lot of sales development reps, part of their job is just trying to uncover and understand the account, know the better way, and it works very effectively for them. Again, assuming you're in an ecosystem, in a universe that all these people are potentially your customers too. Insightly is, again, like a likely person. Everyone could be, everyone could be your customer. So any one of those people could likely do, have some benefits. So a SDR working that area is almost like them sitting there making calls, except they get a pickup every single time because they're walking up to the booth and having a conversation.
Absolutely. That's a dream come true. Everybody's answering the phone because you're right there.
Yeah, it's a 100% pickup. Let's take a look at number 5. So using the technology offered to scan badges, and more importantly, grabbing that pertinent info. So many times the only way you can secure the attendee complete information of the attendees is via scanning them, either at your booth or at your session or at your dinner. And depending on the traffic, I have to recommend that this is not an area to cheap out. Scan. You put all this money, you've flown all these people here. I know it sounds outrageous. It's like, $1,300 a scanner, $1,800 a scanner. It's just not the time to cheap out. Again, like having 2 at a minimum in a high traffic, and being able to scan all those people, especially the right ones, and being able to put in the pertinent conversations is so important for you being able to show ROI when you follow up in the post areas like that.
I would say nothing's more frustrating, Lee, than you're talking to someone, you're having this great conversation, and they're ready to move on, and you haven't scanned them yet, and you have 2 devices in your booth, and both of those people are busy talking to other people. So you either have to interrupt another conversation, which is awkward, like, gosh, just spring for a couple of extra licenses on that app. It's so worth it for those moments where you can avoid being awkward, let someone get on their way, and not have to make any interruptions.
Yes. And we've seen some success with dedicating like the event staff, the event manager and and maybe a marketing manager that are both on site, where that's all they do during the break. Obviously, if there's a moment and they can have a conversation, yes, but by having some dedicated people who are scanning, because that way also a person's in a conversation and they can be like, they can be, Courtney, could I get a scan here? And Courtney comes over and grabs the scanning, runs back. The other thing is, we all know, I don't know, it's almost like trying to self-scan at a supermarket. You can do 4 in a row and you're like, I got this. I'm really good at this. The rhythm there. And then you get to that one item and it just doesn't scan. And the same thing's true with those scanners. For some reason, it's not, you need someone who's doing it all the time because they get really good at it. They know exactly the distance, they know the lighting, they know what happens, and it gets done. So, you know, and most of these have notes sections. So capturing the relevant discussion in that is really important, especially the pains of their current providers and what's happening, because the reality is you just won't remember that conversation after the fact. And I can see so many, I remember so many times where you're back at the office and people are like, hey, I met your customer, they came by the booth, or your prospect, and yeah, they were talking about, they were really not happy with their current provider, but I can't remember. I talked to so many people, I can't remember what they said. Like that missed opportunity. So really capturing those conversations, a lot of the apps offer it's really important to put that in right then.
And so certainly if you're using Insightly or another CRM, we hope you're using Insightly, getting that information right up into the CRM. So downloading it from the conference app. And then, you know, with Insightly, you can certainly map the fields directly into the CRM so that everybody who's receiving those leads post-show has all those notes and all the information right there, and they're ready to act on it.
That is golden and setting us up for the next slide. Look at that. It's like a softball. Now, if your CRM has a mobile app, having that open and at the ready to get a quick snapshot of the statuses of any previous conversations or booked business is so important, because you're able to, a person, like we oftentimes, you'll see a person at the next booth and they're going to be walking over here. You see what company they're with, really on it, reps on the thing, you're already pulling it up on the CRM app, and they're looking at it and they're like, oh, this is so-and-so's account. They're actually they have an open up, they're working with this person. This is what stage it's in. So when they come up, they're like, oh, we've heard of you. Yeah, we're actually in conversations with you. We're talking with so-and-so. Is he here today? Oh no, he's not here today, but so-and-so is great. Let's talk to her, you know, and all these kinds of options that, having that information, and to your point, actually being able to download and put information into it directly or through the integration, whatever works, just get those conversations in.
I think to your point, you know, even when you talk to a lead and it's so hot and you're so excited, you know, after like the show we're going to in September, there are 3 days of expo. And they are like 7 hours long each. And I don't care how hot that lead was, you are not going to remember what you spoke to that person about, because you will have spoken to 1,000 people over 3 days. So really getting that information in is so important.
And now it's post-event. And again, that immediate follow-up for those, you have this window of, you know, in the same way with marketing, they say when a person touches and asks for a demo or, you know, a meeting, you have so much time to get back to them before they, you know, very little time. And the faster you get back to someone, the more, you know, the more effective it will be. So a lot of times people come back from events, are so exhausted, the follow-up is a little, you know, gets pushed aside. So immediate follow-up, and ensuring the event campaign code is always present in any opportunity. And that comes for those sales leaders on the line. It's really up to us to really make sure all the reps do that. And I say that because we want to ensure that any opportunity that moves to closed won or pipeline that can be associated with that event happens, so that that event can be held in the future. And the more ROI we can attribute to it, the more they're able to get even more money for the event, a bigger presence, more speaking slots, all those factors. So we want to make sure that that attribution is there. So we have the opportunity to send reps again and be part of that event. So really critical. So in this idea of immediate follow-up at outreach, when we were at our Dreamforce booth, one of the use cases we touted for sales engagement software was sort of automated post-event follow-up to ensure every booth lead was touched.
I know sometimes sales reps are super excited about following up with someone, and they sometimes start that follow-up before we get the leads downloaded from the show app and uploaded to the CRM, and then they've created an opportunity or they've created a contact, and that contact doesn't carry the show attribution with it, and they're hurting themselves, because at that point, we want to go, if you want us to come back to the show, if you like this show so much, give us the 24 hours or time it takes to get those leads properly loaded into the CRM and properly attributed, so that we make sure that the ROI from this show shows up a year from now. And we don't have to rely on you saying, oh, I actually closed XYZ from that show. Well, it's not in the CRM. So if it's not in the CRM, it didn't happen.
Exactly. And when you talk about those campaigns that come back, it's important ahead of time to have them personalized and broken down between what might have been a booth visit, what might have been a vendor session, a speaking, or might have been the dinner, because the messaging in there will be different, and perhaps the follow-up will be different, the activities of doing that. And those should come, this is a discussion, a strategy session, a discussion you're having with marketing to go, which ones may be more general and come from a marketing campaign, which ones would go into an actual sequence, which would be calls, email, call, social touch, again, done by the appointment setter or done by the account executive, with the goal of scheduling a meeting to schedule a meeting post-event.
Exactly. And some of those MQLs, maybe we're just going to nurture for a little while longer, and we're just going to put them with our marketing automation platform and just try to see what we can get, if we can get a hand raise out of that, versus this group that we know we really want to put into an AE cadence and really focus on those. We felt like we had some meaningful conversations that we can convert.
All ties down to that ROI attribution. As sales leaders, we want to ensure with our marketing partners, we're participating in the events that make the most sense, that drive the most pipeline, that, for those purposes. Obviously, many events may have different goals for the organization, but from our perspective, we want to just ensure that we get the most out of it. We put a lot of time, energy, money. We've sent people out of the office or their home offices to attend. We really want to make sure we get the most out of it, and having these 7 steps helps you do that.
Lee, this was so great. We do have some questions coming in from our audience, so we'll get to those in just a second. So keep submitting them. But I wanted to take a minute here to talk about Insightly CRM. We've talked about CRM in a lot of ways here today, and I know we have some Insightly customers on the call, and that's great. But if you're not a current user of Insightly and a CRM is in your future, we definitely want to talk to you. Insightly CRM is super easy to adopt. It's very customizable to your business, and it integrates with basically everything you're currently using. We hear from customers all the time that they're set up with Insightly in weeks, not months, as some of those other platforms will require, and that they're seeing ROI of 300% in just a year. So one of the best aspects of Insightly is that it's a true platform. We just spoke about leads coming into a marketing automation platform and then being transferred into a CRM. In my previous role, I was using Salesforce with Pardot, and it was really like a wall between sales and marketing. It was very difficult. And with Insightly, sales and marketing are on the same platform. So there's no integration. It's just all one system. So it's super smooth. And then we also have Insightly Service. So if it's a customer service ticketing system, so if your customer support reps are supporting customers, they can be in the same platform too. So you really have this unified experience where your customer facing teams, marketing, sales, and success are all working in the same tool. Really, really good stuff. So I hope you'll check us out, maybe get a demo. Lee, I've got the first question. So I hope you're ready. This one comes from Sarah. She
Ready.
says, any lower cost ideas or suggestions to attract attention to your booth? Maybe she can't afford your cash grabbing machine, Lee. So some lower cost ideas, perhaps.
Well, you know, the spinning of the wheel doesn't have to also be a giant, big imported type wheel. You can also get a very affordable software that creates a wheel where you can put options in, and you have a laptop that you're bringing and you put that on the table and the wheel spins, and you put two external speakers on that to create a little bit of noise and energy, and you get a similar experience. It's not quite as visual. If you're already maybe having some monitors up already, you might use one of those, but just simply on a laptop you're bringing, you can create a spin and win, and you type in what the prize, that they're free software programs that allow you to type in what the prizes are, and you pull them off, and it's really you can accomplish the same thing affordably in that way. So I'd say think about those, look at online games that are available and online and add that in. But it's about engaging. It's about a little noise to attract people to come in and to do that. Those are fun. When someone gets a clunker, it's wah, wah, and all of a sudden people turn around and come in. And when they, win, there's a big fun music playing and things like that. So yeah, I'd look at online gaming and a laptop, and that's all you need to create some energy.
Mm-hmm. I've also seen, you can invest in one nice item and then do like a raffle, a chance to win. At HR conferences, I know are famous. They'll give away like a really nice designer purse. And because HR tends to be a little heavy on the female demographic, I know women would be just lining up to put their business cards in to win, a really nice bag. And I used to go to a lot of IT related conferences, and we would use a lock and key game. And so you have to pick a key from the bowl, and if your key unlocks the cage, then you win the prize in the cage. That could be like AirPods or a router or something. And you can adjust the odds of the game by how many keys you put in the bowl. So there are ways that you can, if you have only a few prizes to give away, you change the odds of winning, and that kind of controls, how many prizes you give away too. Or same thing with a combination lock. So a couple of ideas there for you, Sarah. I hope that was helpful. Another one, this is a little bit of another question. This one's anonymous, so we don't know who this one is, but what is your opinion of using geo-tracking at conferences for future digital marketing?
I love the concept because it helps you better understand the buyer's journey, and their buyer meaning the attendee, and their interests. You're able, if you know what sessions they're attending, so say you're at a security conference and they're attending where they likely would have geo-tracking potentially, but they are attending events around data discovery or around GDPR or other areas, and you're able to understand these are the sessions that they've attended. Then you have a much better, and what booths or other, depending how much that is, how detailed it is, you're really able to understand the interests of that participant, and therefore what type of software or technologies they're considering, so that you can address and do that. So if you're in the data discovery space, then anyone who went to the data discovery stuff is who you'd like to focus on. So it really does help with understanding the interests and the buyer's journey there.
I would add too that so I've been at a conference, and all of a sudden you're on Facebook or Twitter, and you're served an ad to go to a certain booth. And sometimes those ads can create urgency, like we're doing our giveaway on Thursday at noon, or we're doing our book signing, like you mentioned, Lee. Don't forget to come by and see author so-and-so at this time. So I think it can be that geo-tracking can be specifically effective if you have a time-boxed event that you want to draw people to create urgency. Thank you for that question. I have another one here from Jennifer. She says, thoughts on trade show landing pages and if they are effective?
I'm trying to imagine this might be a landing page on what, say, Insightly's doing at an event. We're going to be here at this time. We're going to be here at this time. We're going to be there doing this. I think if you're having multiple activities or doing things, the landing page is effective. If there's just one activity, come see us at our booth, then probably not. But if you're really going to have potentially a co-hosted event and, like we said, speaker sessions that are at different times, having that is a good idea. I think it shows a lot, but there should be a call to action on that landing page. Sign up for this, schedule time for this, get an advance, there always should be a call to action on any type of landing page. Schedule a meeting.
Schedule a demo. Yeah, I do like those because I feel like, especially when our sales reps are posting about the show, like, hey, I'm going to be at this show, it does give the person seeing that social media post a destination where to go to get more information. So like John Smith says, hey, Insightly's going to be at this show and, check us, and here's a link. Then they can go and say, oh, I see it's booth number 168. I see that they're going to be giving away some AirPods. Maybe I should come by there. So I think it can have some application there too. Lee, let's do one more question. And then I think that's all we have time for. This one, yeah, you kind of touched on this earlier. How would you handle it if a rep, like an AE or an SDR, wanted to attend for your company, but would only do so if wearing a mask?
I think that's a great, we should encourage them to come in any way they feel comfortable to attend, because they're going to be people at the event who are going to feel the same way. So you're actually making it really comfortable. An attendee who's wearing a mask is going to be drawn to the other person at the booth wearing a mask. They're like-minded in their approach towards the pandemic, and allow them to have that conversation and be comfortable, more comfortable. So the more the merrier. And I would definitely include that. I did want to add one thing which I meant to mention, and that is a number of the principles that were discussed here, especially the pre-event planning, the during the event activities and post-event, are relevant for both in-person events as well as virtual events that you may be participating in and sponsoring. Those same things of who's speaking, who are the guests, activities you're doing in your booth, all this translates to both. So take a lot of these same principles and apply them to whether it's in-person or virtual. These are just, it's a good sales process, a good marketing process to ensure your ROI.
Wise words, Lee. Thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate your time. I think we all learned a lot. I know I feel more prepared for my show coming up in September, so I'm excited. Lee, thank you so much for joining us today. And thanks to everyone out there. We'll see you next time. Take care.